What's up, travelers? It's Eliz
and Derek
from Means to Travel, and today we're coming to you from our back patio in our Airbnb in southern England. We are on day 3 of our 14-day quarantine here after we arrived in the UK, and we thought it would be a really good opportunity to talk to you all about what to consider if you're planning to do a trip here to the UK during the pandemic. So we have 6 things that we wanted to go over with you guys, and let's get into it.
Okay, so the first thing to do is to do your research. You need to understand what the rules are in the UK before you get here. And the first thing to understand is that there is a thing called the travel corridor that the UK government has in place. I'm not going to go into what countries are on it, but you can go check that out at the uk.gov website and you can see what the up-to-date list looks like. Now, the important thing here is that this list of countries is ever evolving, and what they are is these are the list of countries that have, let's call it, they're safer from a COVID perspective. So the government has said that if you're coming from these places and you can show that you've been there for at least 14 days, you don't have to quarantine upon entry in the UK. That's pretty great. So we don't come from that place, though. We come from the US. The US is not on the list. And that meant that we needed to understand what the rules for quarantine looked like. However, what I will say is that that list is changing quite a bit. So even if you come from a country that's on it right now, it could change very quickly without much notice, and it goes into effect pretty quickly. So keep doing your research and make sure you're looking at that in the days leading up to your trip.
And there's precedent for that, just so you all know. This happened with Croatia, for example,
Yep.
where you didn't have to quarantine really at all when you came into the UK from Croatia, and then all of a sudden with 2 days notice, bam, you had to do that.
So, and that didn't only affect people from Croatia or tourists who were going to Croatia on their way to the UK. That also affected a lot of people here in the UK that are residents here that might have been on a long weekend or a vacation. Suddenly they're scrambling so they don't have to quarantine when they come back to this country.
Yeah, definitely something to consider.
Yep. So that's the first thing. Understand what you are and, if you're on that list. If you're not on the list, now understanding what the rules are for quarantining. The first rule is that you need to go directly from your port of entry, in our case London Heathrow, to your accommodation. Now, what does that mean? It means that if it's close to your port of entry, for instance, Portsmouth is an hour-and-a-half drive, give or take, you have to go directly there.
That's where we are right now.
Which is where we are today. You have to go directly there. However, they do have a thing in place where if you are going to quarantine in a place that's really far away, like in northern Scotland or something like that, and it's going to take a long time to get there, they don't want you, pulling all-nighters to get there and potentially having a, risky drive ahead of you. So they've said that you can stop one place along the way. Now, you're going to have to know that accommodation in advance. You're going to have to provide that to the authorities so they know where you are and they can contact, trace, etc. But you can do one stop along the way. The other things, you need to know how you're going to get there. Now, the rules for getting to your accommodation are relatively simple. They just want you to avoid public transit, if at all possible. So, they understand maybe there's some cases where it's not going to be possible, but for the most part, they want you to avoid crowds and they want you to go there in the easiest route possible. So for us, we hired a driver to bring us from the airport here because it was fairly economical. It was cheaper than probably
about 100 pounds.
It was about 100 pounds.
And it's an hour-and-a-half drive.
It's an hour-and-a-half drive. We thought it would be easy, and honestly, after a long flight, it was
nice to have somebody waiting for us.
Yeah. And then finally, once you actually get here, once you get to your accommodation, you can't leave. That's the rule. You can't go out. You can't be out in public. And so the only way to go outdoors is if you have a private garden like we have here at this Airbnb. So that's where
we promise it's private. That was a kid in a neighboring garden.
Yeah. So again, you can't go outside, you can't leave, so that's going to introduce a lot of other intricacies once you are here, and you need to understand that before you arrive. So that's the first thing, doing your research, understanding the rules, and abiding by them when you get here. Number 2, this is kind of an obvious one, but book your accommodations. So you're going to want to book your accommodations well in advance of getting here. You can't land in the UK and then do hotels tonight, right? That's not applicable now because, as we're going to get to at the end, you're going to need to provide this to the authorities. They need to know where you are. So you're going to want to do that in advance. You're going to want to understand what your criteria are for that accommodation. For us, we went with Airbnb because, well, for a lot of reasons. A, we liked that we could get like a whole place ourselves. that it's very, you know, separate, that we could get a place with an outdoor space that's private, which is very nice. We wanted a place with a kitchen, with laundry facilities, all that good stuff, because we're going to be here for a while. We can't leave. It's got to be okay for us. We got to make it work. You know, a place where we can work and shoot and provide these videos to you. So that was very important to us, and that's why we went with Airbnb. But you need to know that in advance. And you know, my recommendation is think about not just where you want to spend 2 weeks, but also, you know, maybe explore afterwards, because then you can do something cool like we did, where we got a month-long rental, which brought down the price significantly, and we get to explore Southern England in the process, which we've never done before. So that's pretty cool for us. All right, and then the number 3 thing that you're going to want to do after you know what your accommodation is figure out how you're going to get here. So book your travel to your accommodation. Like I said, we did a car service, so we had a driver come and he had a little placard that had her name on it, and he picked us up. It felt very schwanky, but it was fairly economical. And if, for instance, you have a family of 4, it might be cheaper than doing train tickets. And at the end of the day, do you really want to be around all these people? You know, what if you made it all the way through and then you were fine, and then it was because you were on a train around a ton of people and that's why you got it? Like, that would suck. So what I would say is, you know, try to limit your interactions. If that means renting a car and you driving yourself, great, do that. We actually are going to rent a car later, and we'll have a video about that, I'm sure. But we didn't want to pay for a car rental during the 14 days that we're kind of cooped up here and pay for parking on top of it. So for us, it was hiring a driver seemed pretty economical from that point of view. So that's the next thing, is know how you're going to get there and book it.
And the 4th thing to do if you're considering coming to the UK is making sure to book your grocery delivery if you're staying at an Airbnb or to your whatever accommodation you're at in advance. The UK does not have as quick of delivery window availability as you might find in your home country, especially where we're from in the US. So I needed to book our delivery window about a week and a half before we left for the UK in order to get our grocery delivery the day after we arrived. So we were able to do that through a delivery service called Ocado. They have several other options here as well within a lot of the different UK supermarket chains, but this one in particular was really great. We have a video on this channel that we've posted already.
Link?
We'll put the link down in the description below, just of our grocery haul, because we were able to order groceries like food, frozen items, everything, and toiletries and household items all through the same service, which was a godsend when we first arrived, because we cannot go out and go to the shop or go to Boots, which is kind of like the local pharmacy if we need something.
And again, if you book your accommodation through like an Airbnb or something like that, you might not have an unlimited supply of like toilet paper. And nobody wants to run out of toilet paper. It's like the worst thing that could happen. So order some.
Yes, order a lot. But anyway, so that was really, really helpful to be able to have all of that delivered to our quarantine location. And with that, the 5th thing to do is to coordinate a way that you can get a UK SIM card that has a UK-based phone number before you arrive. This kind of piggybacks on top of what I was saying about ordering your groceries in advance, because you're going to need a UK phone number in order to receive your grocery delivery. You know how when you order groceries, they in advance will tell you all of the substitutions, that maybe they were out of this type of chicken, that sort of thing. And you're going to need to be able to communicate with your personal shopper. And you're also going to need to know exactly when they get delivered. So in order to do that, unfortunately, you do need a UK-based phone number, but you can order a SIM card off of Amazon. Let's say if you're in the US, you can, and that basically gives you a phone number, but you have to make sure that you order one that is preloaded with minutes and with data, so that way you actually have that level of phone service once you get here.
Or don't wait. If it doesn't come pre-topped and you get it in advance and you can log in and do it online and top it up before you leave the country, just make sure that you do it while you have internet access.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get here and realize, oh no, I have no way to put it on.
Because I've read online reviews that say, oh my goodness, I paid for the cheaper option of SIM cards on Amazon and didn't realize that I didn't actually have any cell phone service associated with it. Right. So make sure that you are reading through and getting the right thing.
And we'll put a link to the SIM card that we ended up going with that I think was a nice, affordable option.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put that in the description below. It's through the UK-based telephone service company called 3.
Yep. But the important thing to know there is that if you have an iPhone, for instance, not all iPhones are unlocked, meaning that you can put a new SIM card in it that, for instance, is from 3. So make sure you do your research and understand that if you do have one of those, or if you need to go out and like buy a cheap flip phone or something like that to like.
You don't need an expensive iPhone. You just need texting.
You just need texting
and phones.
And yeah, so
we had
important.
an old iPhone that we just plugged it right into that was unlocked, so that worked out for us.
Yep. And that brings us to the last thing that you need to do before you come to the UK, and that's you need to fill out the paperwork. This is where you tell the authorities where you're going to be and all that great information that we just went through. So up to 48 hours in advance, you can log in and start providing them with this information. What flight are you coming in on? What's your seat number? You know, where are you going to be quarantining from? Do you have a stop along the way? All that information, this is where you provide it. Because especially if you come from the US, and what we found and we're a little bit surprised about, and if you watch our video on the surprises that we had for coming during quarantine, which you can, again, we'll have a link to that video, we didn't talk to anybody once we landed. As an American, we get to go through the easy passport control. You basically walk up, you put in your passport, they scan your face, and that's it. We never once talked to a, passport official or what have you.
Customs
agent. It was pretty easy for us, and that was great, and it's because they fill out this paperwork in advance. You don't have to bother with it. It's awesome. So, but make sure you do it because you can be fined pretty heavily if you don't, and if you don't do it correctly. So just make sure you're doing it right, and you should be all set.
And we are waiting to see if they come and check in on us at all during this quarantine.
Yes.
So we're on the edge of our seats here on that.
Yes.
So those are the 6 things to consider if you are looking to come to the UK during the pandemic. Hopefully you all found this really helpful. If you liked this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up below. And if you haven't already, definitely subscribe to this channel so we can hang out more by pressing that red subscribe button down below as well. Thanks for joining us today, and we hope that you stay tuned throughout the next several days as we continue our 14 Days of Quarantine series. Cheers, everybody. Happy travels.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, travelers. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's hang out more. Here are some links to other helpful travel videos on my channel, and press that notification bell so you don't miss any new and awesome travel videos to come.